Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Learn the Language. This is a story from many years ago, when I was a few shy months away from my 18th birthday. My parents told me they had booked me a trip to a foreign country they spent almost a decade of their lives in, both as a vacation and a learning experience. My mom was adamant that in the few months before my trip I must learn said country's language. She tasked my dad with teaching me, as he actually went to school in that country and knew how to read and write in the language in question. Being the bratty teenager that I was and having zero interest in learning that language, I, of course, protested at first and was met with the firm authority wall that was my mom. And since I couldn't back out of it, I decided to comply. One fine afternoon, as my dad prepared everything for me to start learning, I told him to teach me one simple phrase so I can show off to my mom. When he heard what the phrase was, my dad had the biggest grin I've ever seen, and he was totally on board. Cue me the next day going to my mom and saying something along the lines of, "Mom, leave me alone, I don't want to learn that language." I said it in the language with perfect pronunciation and all that jazz. Needless to say, she did not ask me to learn the language again. The next story is called That Was Enough. I started this job in December of 2018. The team was small, 7 of us, including me. Quickly after I started, it became clear that none of them liked me at all. The bullying started off subtly, ignoring me. I was aware of what they were doing, so I began mirroring their behavior. They didn't like that. It escalated. I began to develop migraines from the stress. As much as I hadn't been bothered in the beginning, there's only so long you can go in an environment like that without some kind of effect. By this point, it had been several months. The migraines started to affect my attendance. Of course, they didn't like that either. The manager knew all that was happening, but nothing changed. I wanted another baby, so my husband and I decided to use the job for what it was worth. A nice 9-month-long paid maternity leave. So about 1 year after I started the job, I became pregnant. Then came my birthday. I was expecting nothing, of course. But I got a card and some chocolates from the girls. AKA, the only one with a conscience signed it from the girls because she didn't want me to get nothing. And now they'd flat out refused. Put it down to pregnancy hormones. But when she gave it to me, I, of course, knew it was only from her and cried my little eyes out. This was a Thursday. The next day, I asked my manager to work alone. I covered all the wards. I was working in a hospital by myself while they stayed in the clinic. When I was done, I helped out the nursing assistants in the clinic across to avoid them. Later, my manager came down to see me and discuss. Apparently, they had complained to her that I had not helped them at all, even though it was so busy that they'd have to get the NAs to help. Which was a lie, since I was with the NAs all day. They never had to go help. I explained to the manager what had happened and that I just needed some space, as the alternative would have been to go home. I began crying again. Pregnancy. And the inevitable stress of being ganged up on for over a year by 5 people every day just gets to you after a while. The manager told me to take the following week off. Free of charge. i.e. she'd not write me up. When I came back the following Monday, I wasn't okay, but I was better than I had been. I wondered what my reception would be. And lo and behold, it was bad. A whole confrontation went down, where one of them had the audacity to ask me if I had considered their feelings when I told our manager I didn't want to work with them on that Friday. I knew I had turned some kind of mental corner because I laughed in her face, finally stood up for myself instead of just ignoring it, and then walked off to do my job. And I didn't feel bad about it. This was in December 2019. At this point I was about 6 weeks pregnant. And this is where my revenge began. I was pretty unwell from my pregnancy and heavily protected by UK laws and by the hospital's very own maternity policies. So I wasn't making much of an effort to go to work when I didn't feel 100% okay to do so. Needless to say, I had quite a chunk of time off between December 2019 and early 2020. Fast forward to March 2020 and we were days away from a nationwide lockdown. Of course, ordinarily this wouldn't affect me because I worked in a hospital. But this is where finally my malicious compliance comes in. It was a late March Monday morning, and I was in unusually high spirits on the way into my shift. My morning sickness was finally starting to abate, and there'd been no drama for a little while. And I did actually really like my job when I was allowed to just do it. So I was in quite a good mood and I even greeted my colleagues cheerily. Well, I was greeted with a sharp, "You are not coming in here." I was confused, unsure as to what I could have possibly done over the last 4 days that I hadn't even seen this woman. So I asked what she meant. She and our other colleague didn't want to go on the wards, so they just stuck to the clinic and had planned to send me there instead. We are meant to do the wards first, and they start an hour before I did. Well, my manager and I had already agreed I'd not go on the wards due to my pregnancy. I sensed danger and went to call my manager. I let her know what had transpired, and we agreed that I'd just find a spare room in the clinic and work in there. So I did. Not even 30 minutes later, and lo and behold, grumpy colleague comes storming up to me, demanding to know why I didn't share the whole story with her. I say, "What story? There is no story." She says the agreement between me and our manager. I said, "What business is it of hers?" So she yells at me, "Well, you can't work with us." I snap and tell her to sort her attitude out and walk off from her. A very bossy move for me. Well, I've had enough. I go to see my manager to tell her so. And when I get there, after telling her what was said, I say, since this colleague likes to act like my supervisor so much, how about I finally take some direction from her? I won't work with her or any of them. I'm done. My manager not only agrees, but tells me to shield instead, preserving my pay, fully paid sick leave and my PTO, which took me up to my May leave start date. And the kicker? They were stuck short-staffed for a full year, because my job was legally protected until I officially left it, which was not until March 2021. So I walked out mid-shift, left them high and dry, and in the words of my manager, they brought it on themselves. The last story is called "I Will Tell You." This happened years ago. At the time, I was either in or just out of high school, and I made money bagging groceries at the local supermarket. This job was very interesting, and there was a slew of terrible people employed at my location. But this story only has a cast of 2 people. Me, the overworked, underpaid grocery bagger, and my jerk of a supervisor, Ray. Ray was an absolute threat to everyone in the store, and nobody liked him. The way my days at this job worked was I'd show up for a shift, clock in and go up to whoever was supervising the front end that day. We had a rotation of 3 to 4 soups and I was cool with almost all of them, because I actually did my job. I would ask them what the roster for the day looked like, who's here, when are they going home, if anyone's coming in, and breaks. I was particularly interested in my break time, according to the roster, so I can plan my shift accordingly. Ray was one of those supervisors, and for some reason he hated when people would ask when their break was. Somebody would ask, and then he'd scream, "When it's your break time, I'll let you know." Which might have worked for the cashiers, but not us beggars, as we'd be all over the store and also out getting cards. One day I asked him when I'm supposed to go on my break, and he blew up, saying he'll let me know when it is time for my break. I work the rest of my shift and tell someone else I'm going on my break at a reasonable time and while there's coverage. I come back from this break and he stopped me again to tell me he was in charge of the breaks. I say nothing and finish my shift. A few days later, he and I are working again. I know he's gonna scream about breaks again, so I just don't ask. After all, he'll let me know, right? So instead of talking to the supervisor of the day, Ray, and letting him know I'm here, I just start working. And I continue working. And then I work some more. Finally, I realize 7 of my 8 hours have gone by and I haven't had a single break. But Ray never did let me know it was time for my break. A few minutes after I thought this, Ray somehow finds out I've been working 7 hours today with no break. He comes running up, screaming at me about how I didn't take a break and how dare I. And that the company's gonna get into major trouble because they worked me 7 hours without a break. Was still under 18. Finally, he asked why I never took my break. I responded with, "Well, Ray, you said you'll let me know when it was time for my break. And you never let me know, so I never took a break." He exploded again and screamed at me to take my break, now. And I finally took my 15-minute break and worked another half hour before clocking out to go home. Ray kept being a jerk about everything, but he always gave me my break times in advance for the next few months. Until one day, when he threw another fit at someone else and walked out of that store for good. Everyone else was completely amicable, and after Ray left, I had no problems with breaks again. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and would like to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.